What's up? We're back for the last card of the year, and it's going to be Jared Cannonier taking on Sean Strickland. Good fight card, man. There's a lot of sneaky good matchups. It might not be the best name value-wise, but definitely a worthwhile card and something that I'm going to be looking forward to watching, especially a few fights on the card and some good betting spots as well. So let's get into it, and let's start with this first fight of the night here. Sergey Morozov taking on Journey Newson. And this fight, I believe a fight that's more set up for Sergey Morozov to get the win. I mean, both these guys are coming off victories, but I think Morozov definitely has proven himself to be a little bit more high level. With Journey Newson, he came into the UFC on short notice. He took on Ricardo Ramos, and I feel like that was probably his best performance in the UFC. He didn't win, but he had a couple moments. He kind of was dominated, but Ramos, is a good fighter with short notice, and I feel like Journey Newson showed the most that he has in that fight. Well, actually, I guess his most impressive fight was his knockout win. But besides that one, his last couple, even his last one against Rafa Garcia, I feel like that was kind of a low-level fight where neither guy really looked great in there, and Journey Newson just was a little bit more impressive. And with Sergey Morozov, he is fighting higher-level guys, in my opinion. I mean, he did lose to Douglas Silva de Andrade, but he was beating him, and de Andrade is a good fighter. He did well against Raulian Paiva. He was able to compete with Paiva on the feet, mixing the takedowns and control him on the ground. And with Journey Newson, he's a guy that is short and kind of smaller for the weight, and he likes to move around, be mobile, evasive, has pretty good kicks and decent power in his hands, try to pull you into shots. And he's going to be trying to move, and I feel like defend takedowns and try to get Morozov a little tired and then get him to make mistakes and pull him into his bigger shots. But I don't think Newson has enough, really. I feel like Morozov is going to be able to be competitive on the feet and be able to mix in the takedowns. And I know Newson is he has a jiu-jitsu background, but Morozov, I feel like, is going to be able to navigate it on the ground pretty easily, control. And I see this being, a pretty dominant victory by decision for Morozov, where he's able to control the pace with his wrestling, get Journey Newson thinking early, if it's going to be a takedown or a strike's going to be coming. And I think Morozov's going to be able to be effective on the feet as well and kind of start to run away with it. So Sergey Morozov, to me, clearly, he's just proven more in the UFC. I feel like he is the superior fighter, and I'm going to go with Morozov to win this fight via decision. And this second fight on the card, this is a great fight. We got David Dvorak taking on Manel Kape. And David Dvorak, he had his long winning streak snapped in his last fight. He hadn't lost in over a decade, and then took a loss to Mateus Nicolau. That was a close fight. I mean, both these guys, Manel Kape and David Dvorak, have losses to Mateus Nicolau, but easily could have gotten the nod on different judges' scorecards. Both those fights were razor close. And with Manel Kape, he came into the UFC and had a real high profile, but lost 2 in a row. And now he's won his last 2. So he's the one guy on a little bit more of momentum. But Dvorak was on that long winning streak before the last loss and 4-5-0 in the UFC, and he felt like he won that last fight, so he's probably still thinking he's undefeated or on this win streak and very confident in his own right. And this is an intriguing fight because I feel like the line is a little bit off. I feel like it's going to play out to be a lot closer unless Kape can use those explosive shots to knock out Dvorak. And it's going to be kind of a battle of Kape, who I think is more athletic. He's going to be, a little bit more mobile, a little bit faster, and he's going to be probably the better guy in exchanges, and I think he's going to land heavier shots. But Dvorak is a little more consistent, in my opinion. His pressure is good. He cuts the cage off, and he has more fundamentally sound boxing. He throws pretty good combinations, pretty solid defense. But I feel like the issue is going to be the speed, and I think that's going to be the primary factor in me picking Manel Kape here. I don't think that Dvorak, even though I see potentially him trying to do it, I don't think he's going to be too effective with the grappling. I don't see him being able to get takedowns. If he does and can get to the back, we've seen Manel Kape submitted against guys that can take his back, and David Dvorak does have quite a few rear naked choke finishes, so that's something that Manel Kape has to be very weary of. He can't let Dvorak get him down, especially can't let Dvorak take the back. But Manel Kape is, very explosive guy, hard to take down, hard to, time a takedown on because he's constantly moving and very dangerous. He's going to be throwing strikes up the middle, flying knees, uppercuts when you try to level change. And I just feel like he's going to be moving around. He's going to be evasive. He's going to be hard for Dvorak to find, kind of like Nicolau was. and I think he's going to be landing the heavier shots in the exchanges, just being a little bit faster. Dvorak, if it goes to decision, is going to be competitive because I do think he's going to be the one that throws more volume. He's going to be coming forward and being a little bit more consistent with his pressure and his offense. But I still think Cape is going to land the more eye-popping shots if it goes to decision. And with Dvorak getting dropped how he did in his last fight where he got hurt pretty badly, I feel like Cape, if he gets him hurt like that, could finish him. And I could see Cape landing a similar check hook like Nicolau did. So I'm going to say Cape gets him out of there by knockout in the first or second round. If it does go to decision, I think it'll be pretty close, maybe in like a split decision type of fight, but I'm still going to pick Cape. But the official pick is going to be Manel Cape via second round KO TKO. And we got another good fight here. And this is a short notice fight with Bryan Battle taking on Rinat Fakhretdinov. And Bryan Battle, he dropped down to 170 for the first time in his career, his last fight. And I wasn't really sure how that was going to work out. I mean, I thought he was a big middleweight. And as an amateur, he'd even fought at heavyweight. He'd fought a light heavyweight in a lot of fights. So I thought he was a pretty big guy. Even though he did, you could tell, was a little bit, flabbier and had some weight to lose. I didn't know if he was going to be able to make 70s so comfortably, but he looked good, and now he looks like he's in great shape, and he's able to take this fight on short notice and be confident that he's going to make the weight. So you have to think that he feels strong and he feels confident he can make weight on short notice at 170. It's probably not a big issue for him, the weight cut, and he's won 9 fights in a row if you include his Ultimate Fighter fights, and I would say he's pretty close to the rankings. If he could take out Fakhretdinov, I think he might be able to fight a ranked fighter at his next fight. And Fakhretdinov, he debuted in the UFC and won over Andreas Michailidis his last fight. And he, got the best that Michailidis had to offer because Michailidis' back was against the wall, but kind of sloppy fight between both guys. And I feel like Michailidis had a lot of pressure on him and didn't really have the best performance, but Fakhretdinov hasn't lost since 2014, so it has been almost 10 years and 15 fights since we've seen him on the wrong end of a fight. But he's going to be, I feel, taking on the best fighter that he's ever faced here. And he's a grinder, but I just don't think he's that dangerous on the mat. He's a little bit sloppy, and his striking is powerful, but I feel like it's kind of like weak technically. He's just winging shots and very, very vulnerable, and I do question the level of opposition that he's faced. I feel like he hasn't really fought the highest level of opponents, and this is going to be a big test. I mean, Bryan Battle is someone that's green as well. Bryan Battle is a big guy with a long reach that has pretty nice kicks. He has okay hands, not really the best. He is hittable, but he's durable, and his takedown defense can be a little bit questionable, but he works to get back up to his feet very effectively, and he isn't going to be a guy that's just going to lay on his back and let you hold him down. He's always going to be working. His cardio is top notch, and he's going to really weaponize that and push the pace. And that's something that I don't think Fakhretdinov has really had to deal with throughout his career. I don't think Fakhretdinov has been in there with a guy like Bryan Battle that's going to be long rangey, that could kick him from the outside, that can, when he gets taken down, work back up to his feet. Because I don't feel like Fakhretdinov, even though he has pretty good control, I don't think it's like elite level control where he's just going to hold Battle down and Battle's not going to be able to get back up to his feet at all once he gets taken down. I feel like Battle has proven himself. He's winning there with guys like Andre Petrosky and bigger guys, and he's been able to get taken down, work back up to his feet, and eventually get those guys tired and get the submission or get the knockout victory. And I kind of see this fight playing out that way. He might get taken down early, or he, might kind of get controlled a little bit, but I think eventually he's going to be able to figure it out, start to land some kicks on the outside, get Fakhretdinov desperate, and either club and sub him or knock him out, or, get him to shoot a desperate takedown and catch him in one of those front chokes that he likes. I think he's going to be able to get him out of there down the stretch, either the second or third round. So I'm going to say Bryan Battle wins this fight via third round submission here and keeps his win streak going. I know he's coming in on short notice, but I do lean towards the Battle side. I just feel like he's more proven. I feel like he has cleaner striking. I think Fakhretdinov has better wrestling, most likely, but I don't think it's necessarily overwhelmingly better than Battle's. And I think Battle has the, advantage of already fighting styles that Fakhretdinov, and I don't know if Fakhretdinov is the best grappler that Battle has faced. So I got to go with Bryan Battle in this one, and I'm going to say that he gets it done inside the distance via submission in the 3rd round. And this next fight, this is one of the hardest fights to call of the entire card, if you ask me, with Maheshate taking on Rafa Garcia. With Maheshate, we really just don't have a lot to go off with him. He got a quick knockout in his UFC debut, and I did find a fight of his where he fought M1 Global, and he just got dominated, taken down at will, and lost that decision. That was his one loss. And obviously, he has the one fight on the Contender Series where it's kind of a back and forth fight where he did get rocked a little bit on the feet, but was able to prevail with his clean striking. And then we got Rafa Garcia, who's, in my opinion, a good fighter. He's a little bit smaller for 155, 5'7". He's going to be taking on a 6-foot guy in this fight, which is a big difference. But he is someone that has okay striking, but his striking is really only good because of the threat of the takedown. He has a decent cross, has some power, and will try to work the leg kicks and kind of the rear cross, get inside, maybe some hooks, and then level change and work his wrestling. And he's getting better with his top control and just his top game in general, working the ground and pound and being able to put more damage on guys when he gets them on the ground. He used to be really weak with his top control, but on the feet, I think that he's at a big disadvantage here with Maheshate. He's a guy that, even though when you get inside on him, he doesn't have good defense, he doesn't really move his head, and he stands upright, very hittable guy. So if you pressure him and can get past his weapons, then his striking kind of gets nullified a little bit, but he's a very clean counter striker. He works the 1-2s down the pipe. He has good footwork, good in and out movement. His distance control is on point, and he has that big height advantage in this fight. Even though his reach advantage isn't as pronounced with only 3.5-inch reach advantage, it's still going to be, a pretty big difference there between Maheshate and Garcia. And Maheshate is very fast. He throws down the pipe, has big power. He has the nice counter 1-2, and he has a real nice check hook. And he's shown the ability to put guys out with one shot. He's also shown the ability to get into fights where he gets hurt and can adjust, come back, find his range and take over the fight and get the victory after getting almost knocked out or getting dropped or rocked. So I feel like he's proven himself in certain ways, but one thing that he hasn't really proven himself with is being able to stuff takedowns, get back up to his feet. How is he going to look off his back? Is his cardio going to hold up in a grappling heavy fight? He does train at a good gym with the Embo Fight Club, and obviously Garcia trains at a great gym with Elevation Fight Team, but ultimately it's just, this is a tough one because I think that Garcia potentially could pressure him, get inside and take him down, control him against the fence and really kind of expose him, Maheshate, or Maheshate could use that, height and reach advantage, move around and have the cleaner striking and kind of just piece up Garcia. So it's a fight that I feel like could go either way, and I agree with the line being nearly a pick'em. And I kind of want to pick Garcia, but I'm going to go with Maheshate because I just think the size advantage to me is the difference here. I think it's a close fight, and I think one guy is the, pretty clear advantage on the feet. The other is a pretty clear advantage in the grappling. So I'm just going to go with Maheshate because I think he's going to be able to use his, physical gifts with the height and the reach to keep the range a little bit better and be a little bit more dangerous on the feet and offset that control and grappling that Garcia has in the fight. I don't really know if he'll knock him out because Garcia is a real tough guy, but I'm going to go with Maheshate to win this fight via decision. And this next one, like almost any matchup you can have at 135 pounds, is a great matchup. And it's Said Nurmagomedov. He's taking on Saidyokub Kakhramonov. And this is going to be Saidyokub's second fight against Nurmagomedov. The first one, I will say, I think he was the toughest fight to date for Umar Nurmagomedov. He was able to take him down at one point, had some control time, and really stuffed all of Nurmagomedov's takedowns, made it a striking fight, and had some moments on the feet, even though he got outstruck for the most part. And, since coming to the UFC, Kakhramonov has proven himself even further. He's gotten some big wins. He got a win in his last fight in dominant fashion against Ronnie Lawrence. He was able to beat Trevin Jones. He choked him out. And he's on a 4-fight winning streak. He's a young, confident guy. And he's going to be looking to get the biggest win of his career here against Said Nurmagomedov, who's also on a winning streak. Said's won 3 in a row, and Nurmagomedov has looked really good recently. His last fight, he had a tough one against Douglas Silva de Andrade, who's a really good fighter. He's a beast. He's a guy that recently has not slowed down at all and is able to pressure, has great takedown defense, hits like a truck, extremely explosive. So that's a big time win. And Nurmagomedov has also gotten 3 first round finishes, 2 by knockout, 1 by hurting statement to the body and then submitting him. So he's been able to really come out explosively in his other wins and take guys out. He does have the 1 loss to Raoni Barcelos, where Barcelos was able to mix in some takedowns, get some back control time, and pick up the victory. So that's what makes this fight interesting with Saidyokub Kakhramonov, who is more of a grappler. But with Nurmagomedov, he's the far superior striker in this one. Kakhramonov leaves a lot of openings when he pressures. He can struggle a little bit to close the distance, especially against guys that have good kicks. And Said Nurmagomedov is a guy that has great movement. He throws really, really good kicks, fast kicks, nice kicks to the body, to the head. He mixes the target up, good counter punches, real fast hands, nice 1-2s, and he's just a really excellent striker. And the one thing about Nurmagomedov that gets him in trouble and could get him in trouble in this fight is the spinning attacks. And he obviously can hit a home run with those to knock you out, but it exposes the back and exposes takedowns, and that's where Kakhramonov is going to try to take advantage of that, find the timing and, get in when he throws one of those spin attacks and get the back or get into a dominant position on the ground. And Said Nurmagomedov in the past, or at least in the fight with Raoni Barcelos, he did get his back taken. He was able to get a little bit tired in the later rounds and started to get controlled a little bit more. But it was still a very competitive fight against a very good fighter, and I don't think it's so easy to just close the distance and get inside and take him down. And I think Nurmagomedov is going to be a little bit more cognizant of the spinning attacks and being a little bit less dependent on those and being a little bit smarter, looking for the counter shots, because Kakhramonov leaves a lot of openings. I mean, we have seen him fight fairly recently in 2019 against P.P. Vargas, and, in that fight, he ended up getting knocked out with a counter flying knee, but he was getting clipped up with a lot of shots during the fight. And I feel like he's a guy that likes to get takedowns primarily against the cage and primarily in the clinch. And that's a lot different than shooting from a distance. And I think that he's not necessarily going to be super active or be able to get inside as much as he did against a guy like Ronnie Lawrence or he did against someone like Trevin Jones. And I think he's going to be getting hit a lot. And I think Said Nurmagomedov is going to maybe walk away here with another knockout win, personally. Saidyokub Kakhramonov is a fighter that I do like. And obviously, I think he's live to win here. Because if he can get a couple takedowns, he's a guy that has real good top pressure, really good ground and pound on the ground. And he wears guys out. So if he can get on top and really control and be effective with his ground and pound and his top control, then he could sway the fight and get Nurmagomedov tired and start to get the better of it. But I just feel like Said Nurmagomedov is going to be too slick on the outside. He's going to be mobile. He's going to be, very fast. And I think he's going to have the advantage in the striking by a fairly large margin. I think there's going to be a lot of openings that Kakhramonov leaves to be hit. And I feel like Nurmagomedov can get the job done via knockout. And I think Nurmagomedov also, he has the wrestlers to get his wrestling on a point as he can. And in this fight, I feel like he knows that the only thing he has to worry about is the takedowns from Kakhramonov. I don't think he's really too worried about the striking. Whereas in a fight with Raoni Barcelos, for instance, you really have to worry about Barcelos' boxing, his pressure, and his stand-up as well. And that gave Barcelos a better ability to set up the takedowns than I think Kakhramonov is going to have. So for that, I have to go with Nurmagomedov. And I'm going to say that he gets the knockout here. I'll say he gets a first or second round KO TKO. In this next one, we got Julian Marquez taking on Deron Winn in the 185-pound division. And, man, this fight is a little bit sketchy for both guys. I feel like both guys have had issues. And, they're both coming off brutal knockout losses. Julian Marquez, he got knocked out pretty badly against Gregory Rodriguez. And then Deron Winn took a lot of damage in his last fight and ended up getting knocked out himself. Whenever you talk about Deron Winn or a Deron Winn fight, I mean, right away you just got to address, him being 5'6", and Julian Marquez obviously is 6'2". That's a huge difference. And in his fights, it's just been a big problem for Deron Winn. Obviously, it's real tough to go in there and be able to fight these way bigger guys. And Deron Winn, I mean, what you have with Winn is you got a guy that's a really, really good wrestler. He can go in there and take guys down, control them on the ground, on the feet. He's tough. He'll throw some hooks and overhands and try to work his way inside. But it's just he doesn't have the height or the skills to really compete with these guys in the UFC on the feet at middleweight. And he's really gotten beat up on the feet for the most part. And against Julian Marquez, I think, Marquez is going to have a big advantage in the stand-up, obviously. Even though he's not really the prettiest striker, I think he hits hard. He has, pretty decent power punching ability, has okay kicks. And, Marquez is a guy that he can look at that last fight with Phil Haas and throw elbows as well and try to land those because those were extremely effective on Deron Winn in his last fight. And, the one thing is Julian Marquez has had issues with guys just taking him down and grinding him out, even low-level or lower-level fighters like Maki Pitolo and, some other guys are able to take him down. Even though he's gotten comeback wins in certain fights, he's shown a real susceptibility to being taken down and held down on the mat. And Deron Winn is just going to want to take him down and hold him down. But Deron Winn, with the size disadvantage in most fights, has really struggled to be able to control guys once he gets him down. He doesn't really have that jiu-jitsu background, and he just struggles to hold guys on the ground. So with Marquez, I just don't know if he's going to be able to control him, and I think that Marquez is going to be doing majority of the damage on the feet. I don't really like the amount of damage that Deron Winn took in his last fight. Both guys actually take a lot of damage. I mean, either guy's chin could be completely deteriorated at this point, but I think Marquez has much more likelihood of landing these shots to get Deron Winn out of there. But, ultimately, I feel like submission is in play for Marquez as well. If he can hurt him and then catch him in a submission, kind of similar to Gregory Rodriguez, we've seen Julian Marquez get quite a few submission wins, and Julian Marquez has done fairly good against wrestlers. He was able to beat Phil Haas. He has a couple wins back in the day, like against Matt Hamill and Cameron Olsen, who are wrestlers. So I just feel like the size difference, and I feel like Marquez is the better grappler, probably the better submission threat, and he's the better striker and bigger by a large margin. I just think he's going to get the job done. One thing that, does throw a monkey wrench into Marquez a little bit is he is a glory guy, so he had to, relocate to Vegas, and I don't necessarily know exactly what he's going to be doing with his corner and everything like that, but hopefully he has, a good team behind him, and he's going to have his head on point and go in there and do the job. So I'm going to say that Winn ends up kind of maybe getting a couple takedowns early and is looking good, but I think Marquez is going to be able to get back up to his feet, put some damage on him, and get Winn more and more desperate to get inside. And I'm going to say he gets a submission in this one, Julian Marquez, and I'll say he wins by second round submission here. And this is another fun fight, man. We got Jake Matthews, who looked really good in his last fight. He came out there with a completely new attitude against Andre Fiallo. He was much more aggressive. He came into the entire week saying he was going to get the finish. He was going to go for it as much as he could. And he did exactly that. He was pressing back Fiallo the whole time, staying in the pocket. He was landing real good boxing combinations, looked extremely fast, and just beat him up and took him out of there. And that was after his loss to Sean Brady. And he also had that fight in Australia against Diego Sanchez where he played it safe and took him down, and a lot of people are giving him crap because it was a boring fight against a guy that they thought he could take advantage of on the feet as well. But, he's going to be taking on in this fight someone that's a pretty good striker in Matt Semelsberger, but much less experienced than Matthews. Matthews is only 28 years old, which is, pretty scary for a lot of guys because he's been in the UFC forever. And now that he's got this new mindset, in my opinion, where he's very confident, he has the skills already. He's been forged to the fire with this experience in the UFC. He's had a ton of fights in the organization. He's had losses. He's had to fight top guys. and now he's getting into his prime physically. That's a pretty scary thing for a lot of guys, especially if Matthews can continue to put these performances together and not kind of slip back into that inconsistency. But ultimately, if you look at Matthews' career, a lot of his losses, it's been against guys that have been able to out-grapple him. For instance, the recent loss to Sean Brady. He has a loss back in the day, Andrew Holbrook, where he got out-wrestled. He lost to OAM, Kevin Lee. So that's kind of been his kryptonite. He hasn't really been losing to fighters that are strikers that are going in there to knock him out. He's historically actually done really well against striking-based fighters. Like, he dominated the Leech. He probably would have got the submission on the Leech if the Leech wasn't such a, dirty fighter in that fight. And his last fight, obviously, went in there and took out Andre Fiallo. He was able to take down and dominate a pretty heavy hitter in Mel Meek. So against strikers, he's pretty much done his thing. And I feel like Matthews has really fast hands, good counters, pretty solid defense. He's really good in the pocket and solid boxing skills. And his wrestling and grappling is underrated. He's a black belt. He's really physical. He can hit really nice takedowns. He's very good on top. He has active submission game. He wants to take the back and throw ground and pound, and he can open up the neck and get you out of there. And Matt Semelsberger, I feel like we've kind of seen where he is at this point. Semelsberger, he's done well against the lower echelon of the UFC and these lower level guys that he's fought, and he's been able to take out a couple guys early with big knockouts, and that is one of the main threats of Semelsberger. He's a nice striker. He's tall and long and does a good job of working that pull two or the 1-2s. He has fast hands, good leg kicks. So kind of a range striker that has power, and he's pretty slick and technical. And if he lands on you, he can knock you out, especially early in the fight. But he's a little bit plotty with his footwork, and he doesn't really cut the cage off the best. We saw Alex Morono was kind of able to skirt around him and beat him up. And we've seen in other fights guys be able to take him down and control him on the ground. So I think for Jake Matthews, he has a pretty good style to beat a guy like Matt Semelsberger, because he's not going to give him that space that he wants to strike at range. And even though Semelsberger is a good counterpuncher on the inside, and I feel like he's okay there, I think Jake Matthews has, the better boxing, he gets the better of the exchange on the inside in this fight. And I think his wrestling and grappling is where he has a huge advantage. I don't really think Semelsberger has great takedown defense, has great wrestling defense or submission defense. We saw AJ Fletcher, who I don't rate as a, super high level fighter. I don't rate him even close to the level of Matthews, especially in the grappling or wrestling or striking. And I think that Matthews is going to be able to hit takedowns here if he wants him, and I think that would be the smartest thing to go to, especially early. And once he gets on top, be aggressive and look for that submission finish, because I don't think Semelsberger on the ground is, up to snuff for a black belt like Jake Matthews. So ultimately, I think Matthews is going to be able to get him down in the first round, probably beat him up pretty good. And then in the second round, I think he's going to open up that submission and get him out of there. So Semelsberger is dangerous in any fight. He's live to get a knockout. But Matthews, he's never been knocked out in his career. He has shown susceptibility to leg kicks, and that's been his demise in a couple fights where he maybe shot in on bad takedowns after he got leg kicked, which led to him getting submitted or things like that. But I just don't think that Semelsberger is going to be able to have the fight he wants to be able to get those leg kicks off enough to affect the fight. And if he does, I think that's going to be his path to victory. But ultimately, I think that Jake Matthews is going to more dominate this fight with his pressure and his wrestling and grappling. So I'm going to say Matthews gets a rear naked choke in the second round. And this next fight, we got Cheyanne Vlismas. She's taking on Cory McKenna. And this is a fight that, is one of the more, I believe, boring fights on the card, but it should be, okay to watch regardless. We got Cheyanne Vlismas, who I think is actually a pretty good fighter for 115, and she's a good striker. She has good movement. She looks like she has decent pop on her punches. She throws pretty good 1-2. She has fast hands on the inside. She'll throw pretty decent hooks and some decent combinations. She'll mix it up to the body. She has a nice head kick, and she looks like she has good enough cardio. She moves around well and good output. And she's, I believe I would say she's one of the top 15 strikers in the weight class. But the one thing about her that we don't really know 100%. I mean, we've seen certain fights where she's shown good takedown defense. Her last fight with Mallory Martin, she was able to show good takedown defense. She's even shown good takedown offense in other fights. But that one fight where she did fight Montserrat Ruiz, she did get kind of head and arm thrown over and over, and that was a really bad look. If that type of thing happens again, I don't really know what to say there, you know. But with Vlismas, I feel like she's been training at Extreme Couture, and she was getting ready for a Tabitha Ricci fight a while back, which never materialized. That was another real grappling heavy girl, and you know that's what she's been training. I've seen her with Dennis Davis, who's a very good, you know, grappler, very good coach, and you have to think that she's got her grappling on point enough. You know, it can't be as bad as it was before, and or in that fight. And I think she did say she went into that fight with an injury as well, so that could have been potentially part of the issue. But Vlismas, I feel like she has a big advantage on the feet with the speed, with her footwork or movement. I think she could be really, you know, dominant if she can get that, you know, footwork and kind of counter-striking game going on McKenna and just kind of stick and move on her. With Cory McKenna, we got a young developing fighter who it's good to see her get 3 fights this year, because that's, you know, the way she's going to continue to improve and continue to get better. And so far, she's 1-1. She lost to Elise Reed, and then she did get the win in her last matchup over Miranda Granger. But, you know, I still feel like she, like I said, is a developing fighter. She has all right striking. It's getting better, but she doesn't really have a big danger factor on the feet. She is a little bit plotty with her footwork. She's not the best athlete or the fastest, and her reach is, you know, a big issue. She has a 58.5-inch reach, which is going to be, you know, a big disadvantage in this fight to Vlismas' 63-inch reach. And McKenna, she's definitely primarily a grappler. She's going to want to get this fight in the clinch and then work the takedowns. If she can get on top, she's going to be trying to control and eventually work her way to that submission. She was able to get the submission win over Miranda Granger, but Miranda Granger was coming back off a long layoff. She was coming back off of a pregnancy, and I don't really think that was that great of a win. I think this win over Vlismas would be much more impressive. I think Cheyanne Vlismas is going to be a little bit stronger and just the better athlete in this fight. And ultimately, I think her striking and her athleticism is going to be what gets her the win here. I don't think that McKenna is going to be able to get her grappling going enough or even at all in this fight. And I think that really Cheyanne Vlismas is going to be able to look good here with her striking, with her side-to-side movement, with her fast hands, her ability to pick girls off and control that distance. And I think she could kind of run away with this fight. I think she could mix in some leg kicks and really do damage there too. And I can't say that McKenna has no path to victory, because we did see that one fight where Cheyanne Vlismas' grappling was really lacking. But I don't know. I don't think that's going to happen again. I think she's going to show that was kind of an anomaly, and her fight with Mallory Martin is more what she does have to offer. And that's why I have to go with Cheyanne Vlismas here to win a decision. So I think that Mallory Martin is a good proximity as well to Cory McKenna. So she had to get ready for a grappler there. She was getting ready for a grappler against Ricci. Now she has Cory McKenna. I think it's a great matchup on what she's been doing recently. And if she's improved in that grappling at all, she should be able to win this fight pretty easily, I feel, on the feet. So Cheyanne Vlismas for me is the pick. And this next fight, I don't really have a ton to say about this fight. I don't really like the line, so don't really have a lot of interest in it. With Cody Brundage, he's coming in here on short notice, and he's a pretty big underdog. Michal Oleksiejczuk is almost 3-1 favorite here. And I do agree that Michal should be a pretty solid favorite, because Brundage just hasn't proven enough. He did get the win in his fight against Tresean Gore by knockout, and he was able to get the win against Dauchalungi and Bula with that guillotine. But he has been knocked out in a couple of his losses, and I feel like Michal Oleksiejczuk is a guy that comes out really fast early. He has good boxing. His wrestling and grappling has kind of been a little bit subpar, but he has been fighting big guys at 205, so I think that could potentially have been part of the reason why he was getting ragdolled so much and why he was getting so tired. I don't really feel like he was a big 205er where it's like now he has a tough weight cut. I think it's still probably fairly easy to make that 185 cut, and now he's a pretty decent sized 185er. I wouldn't say he's a huge 185er, but he's pretty good sized, and he's still young. He's only 27. So I feel like Michal's probably going to get that knockout in the first round. It's just tough because I don't really have a lot to go off with Brundage. He does look athletic. He trains out of Factory X and seems like he has decent movement and striking. But if you press him and, you can land on him, it seems like you can't hurt him. And I don't think his wrestling is going to be enough here. I don't think he's just going to be able to go out here and out-wrestle a guy like Okeksiejczuk and hold him down and expect to win like that over 3 rounds. Brundage probably will have the cardio advantage, training at elevation and being, a guy that just has a little bit of a, more taxing style where he's going to be getting the takedowns and maybe being able to wear out Oleksiejczuk. But it's hard for me to just pick Cody Brundage here. So I got to go with Oleksiejczuk. I'm going to say he gets the first round knockout. And man, this is a sick matchup right here. Drew Dober taking on Bobby Green. 2 guys that we know what they're going to do in there. They're going to go in there and put on a good striking fight. And both these guys are action fighters. They're fun to watch, but they fight in completely different styles. And Bobby Green has been hung up a little bit with USADA. He had some issues with that, and he hasn't fought in a while. He had a fight scheduled that got taken away because of that. And Drew Dober, he has been able to stay fairly active. He was able to get a win over Terrence McKinney. Then he got another win over Rafael Alves, 2 really explosive, dangerous guys. So showed that he's still in the mix in the weight class. Looking to be moving to 3-0 this year. Bobby Green's last fight was against Fiziev, which was that really fun, or never mind, excuse me, it was against Islam Makhachev, where he kind of got dominated on short notice. And yeah, so that fight, wasn't really a good indication of what's going to happen in this fight. Both those guys kind of had to feel that Islam crush. But yeah, this is going to be a sick fight. I mean, with Drew Dober, we got a guy that's a Muay Thai guy. He has really good footwork. He moves in and out really well. And he likes to get in the pocket with you, throw combinations. He has real nice combinations, fast hands, big power, and his chin is top notch, man. I mean, you can't hurt that guy. And, he has the ability to take damage, to give damage. If you stick in the pocket with him in exchange, he'll put you to sleep. He's super fast and powerful and real sharp. I mean, he has nice, tight combinations. He has pretty good kicks, nice leg kicks. He doesn't really throw a lot of body kicks or head kicks, but he can throw them when he wants to. And pretty active. He'll stay in your face, try to push that pace and weaponize his cardio, training at elevation there. His grappling and wrestling is a little bit questionable. He's definitely improved with his takedown defense, but it's still not great. I do feel like Bobby Green, who is a former wrestler, could come in here and surprise the people and hit some takedowns and mix it up and win that way. But hopefully Bobby Green, or I don't know. I mean, I think he has to do what he has to do to win, but it's going to be more fun if it's a striking fight for the fans. But I do think that Green, if he wanted to, could potentially mix in some takedowns. I don't think he's going to necessarily be able to do a lot of damage or submit Dober, but I think he could maybe mix it up here. But Dober, he's a guy that he has been submitted in a few of his fights, and he has struggled against wrestlers and grapplers, so he has to at least be wary of the threat that Bobby Green might hit a couple level changes and try to take him down here. We did see him do that against other strikers, like when he fought Nurmagomedov and stuff like that. And with Bobby Green, obviously we got a guy that's super slick, mobile, evasive, counter striker off the back foot, really good defense. Even though he holds his hands low, he has that, really exceptional kind of like variation of the Philly shell type thing going on. And he has good high guard when he does need it. He'll put his hands up and he blocks shots really well. And his defense is just really unique and special. And he's extremely fast, mobile. I know he had some hand issues that he got cleaned up after his last fight because of the layoff. So potentially he could be throwing and hitting a little bit harder in this fight. But yeah, it's going to be a kind of a competition here in this fight against if Drew Dober can break him down and get Bobby Green to stay in the pocket more with him, or if Bobby Green can use that slickness, stick and move, touch Drew Dober up, use his speed, his evasiveness, his footwork, and just finesse him in and, be the superior boxer. And I feel like, boxing is going to beat Muay Thai in this fight, man. I'm going to go with Bobby Green. I think Bobby Green is going to be able to use that slickness, that movement, the counter punching. I don't think he's going to give Drew Dober the fight he wants in the pocket. I don't think he's going to brawl with him. And if Drew Dober's pressure really starts to get overwhelming, then I think Bobby Green will mix in some takedowns and be able to get him to the ground and kind of mix it up a little bit. And Bobby Green doesn't have a shortage of cardio. That's how Drew Dober tends to beat a lot of guys, by just continuing pressuring him and wearing him down. I think Bobby Green's cardio is pretty top notch. We've seen Bobby Green in the cage against strikers like Rafael Fiziev, who have that same pressure Muay Thai style. I think he's, a little bit better at it than Dober. He has much better kicks and more variation. Fiziev is a little more explosive. And Bobby Green was able to handle that pretty easily, make that a super competitive fight. And I feel like Bobby Green is going to be able to just out-slick him in this fight. But with every Bobby Green fight, you got to be kind of trusting of the judges, that they're looking and seeing the counter strikes and the slick style, and they're not just seeing the forward pressure and the, missing in the more potential volume thrown but not landed from his opponents. So it does sometimes end up like a tricky dance where you think you won, but it's like they give it to the other guy a lot with the Bobby Green type fights. So I could see, a close fight play out like that scenario. But I got to go with Green, man. I just think he's a little bit slicker. I don't think he's going to brawl with Dober. I think he's going to have faster feet and just, land counters, get in, get out. And eventually that chin of Dober is going to go, man. I mean, eventually it's going to happen. I don't know if it's going to be this fight. I kind of doubt it's going to be this fight. But I think Bobby Green's going to be able to win the decision here. And up here with this next one, this is a fight that I just kind of want to sit back and watch. I don't really have a big opinion on it prediction-wise, or I don't really want to bet on it. I usually, when you see Julian Erosa and you want to bet on him, it's usually at the underdog price. And same thing with Caceres. So, I mean, if you like him at plus 155, I think that's a pretty enticing number against a guy like Erosa, who is a beatable opponent. But to me, it's just a stay away, because both these guys, or more importantly, Julian Erosa, he fights just so wild, man. I mean, the guy's just closing the distance and making fights just kinetic wars. So it's hard to really be confident in what's going to happen in there. And unless you put Erosa out, you knock him out, he's just going to continue to keep coming, throwing volume. There's a real wide array of strikes, and he's long and rangy. And that's something that Caceres really weaponizes in a lot of his fights, is his reach and his height and his ability to move backwards and counter strike. And I do think he's going to land a lot of counters on Erosa with the check hook, with the 1-2s, with the pull 2. But the issue with Caceres is he doesn't have that power, man. He doesn't seem to be able to shut guys off. He was landing huge bombs on Chase Hooper the whole fight, and Hooper was able to continue to walk through him and, keep getting inside and stuff like that. And, Caceres does have sometimes a problem giving his back, and I think that Erosa has pretty sneaky back takes, so that could be something that plays out in the fight late, and Erosa comes out here with another late submission victory. But I think on the feet, I think Caceres is going to be landing a lot of clean counters, but I think Erosa is going to be landing the heavier shots. I think he's going to be landing kind of awkward, long punches. And Caceres, even though he has pretty good defense and good, evasive movement, he is there to be hit at times. And I think Erosa is going to find him and start to land shots and make it more of a war, break down Caceres a little bit. And I think he's going to make Caceres want to grapple, which is going to play more in the favor of Erosa, like it usually does late in fights. And I just lean more towards the momentum of Erosa. Saidyokub and Caceres did have a really fun fight where Caceres did prove himself a little bit. I thought he stepped up to the plate after that win streak. I still wasn't 100% sold on Caceres because he wasn't beating the highest level competition. He did go out there and take out Sungwoo Choi, which was a pretty big time win. But he was competitive with Saidyokub and did well. He didn't just get knocked out or overwhelmed by the power, which I thought potentially could have happened. And I think he kind of showed that he's going to be game in this fight with Julian Erosa, but Erosa's been doing really well, man. He just dominated Keem Dawodu. He was able to beat some other guys that are looking pretty good right now, like he beat Charles Jourdain. He beat Nate the Train. So I think that Erosa, he's in a good moment in his career right now, and I don't think that he's going to get knocked out. That's usually the way that he loses. I think he's going to be the guy here that throws more volume at the end of it. I think it's going to be a wild fight. I think it's going to be a close fight like a lot of Erosas are. But ultimately, I think Erosa will either get a late submission or win by decision here. And I think a submission is live. I think it might be a decent bet to bet Erosa to win in round 2, round 3. But as far as the money line goes, to bet him at minus 180, I just think that's kind of crazy. And I just don't feel it on Caceres at plus 155. So I feel like moneyline wise, it's a pass for me. And I'm going to go with the Erosa here just because he has the momentum. I think he's going to be throwing more volume, pressuring, and have a more pleasing style to the judges. I don't think Caceres is going to have that pop in his punches to stop Erosa's forward pressure or knock him out. And I think that'll be the difference in the fight. I think either he'll get that late submission with the back take or be able to win in a, close, real fun Erosa type decision. And this next fight has to be a little bit of a bummer for Amir Albazi, right? He was expecting to fight Brandon Royval, then he was expecting to fight Alex Perez, who are both top 10 guys. Now he has to settle with the third opponent, who's a UFC debutant. And clearly the UFC sees Albazi as a top fighter in the weight class, giving him those two opponents. So hopefully if he wins this fight, we could see a quick turnaround for him. But this fight's more risky, no doubt, because he's facing an unknown, unranked fighter who's on a 7-fight win streak. And a win doesn't do much, but a loss is really going to tumble him down the rankings. For Alessandro Costa, he's the long-reigning Lux Fight League champion down in Mexico. And he was able to get a win as well in the Contender Series, even though he wasn't given a contract earlier this year. So he's fought at the Apex before, and he's getting a huge opportunity to debut on a main card of a UFC event against a ranked fighter. If he wins, it's going to immediately put himself in the top 10. And to be honest, man, I think this was a great replacement. I mean, to me, Costa's a beast. He is only 26 years old, so he should have years to grow. And I think he's a great addition to the weight class. But on the feet, he's a powerful fighter, solid combinations. He throws nice hook combos. His right hand is nasty. Good job attacking the body. He has fast hands. His leg kicks are good. If you pressure him and make it a war, you can see that he can get pushed back a little bit, can get hit in exchanges. He does tend to load up on his punches sometimes. He also is susceptible to leg kicks himself. And sometimes he can get stuck in the mud movement-wise and be a bit underwhelming there. But he will throw flying knees, some wild kicks, and be a little bit flashy. And he's an athletic, powerful guy. So he's dangerous on the feet. And he's a very good grappler. He has solid wrestling, good singles, good doubles, good submissions, good throws and trips in the clinch. When he gets on top, he can transition well. He's a big submission threat. Sometimes you could see him be overzealous and give up position, but he's also dangerous off of his back with the submissions, with the arm bars, the triangles. And in this fight, I don't think he should be on bottom and work to stand up instead of threaten submissions. The likelihood of catching a high-level grappler like Albazi off of your back is not really worth the risk, I don't think. And cardio-wise, Costa, he has good cardio for sure. He's gone 5 rounds and looked good. And he's a good prospect if you ask me. Maybe he has not fought that top-flight competition, but he has legit grappling. He has powerful hands, sharp hands. And he's going to be a tough task for Albazi. With Albazi, he is a guy that has the better movement in this fight and needs to be fast, sharp. On the feet, he's improving, and he has a good jab. He'll double, triple up on it. He has very nice head kicks. He is pretty good at controlling the distance, sniping the counter backhand when fighters come forward. And he does leave openings for counters, and his body is available to hit. We did see him get dropped against Jose Torres multiple times, but his durability and recoverability are really good. And I feel like both these guys are going to be competitive in the stand-up. I think Albazi can have the footwork edge and the speed edge, and I think Costa can have the power edge. The leg kicks for Albazi could be a huge key, though. And Albazi, his grappling is elite as well. His submission game is very strong. He's a good wrestler. In this fight, I don't really know if he's going to be able to take down Costa. We did see against Ismagulov, he kind of struggled to take him down early and struggled to hold him down. And as far as the grappling goes, I think it's going to be very fun to watch, very competitive. And Albazi, cardio-wise, is a machine. He doesn't get tired. And I could see this fight playing out more of a striking fight with neither fighter being able to get it to the ground early. But if someone is able to get it down late and kind of break their opponent, I think it will be Albazi, especially with Costa coming in on short notice. And I think it could go either way here, but Costa's going to have to prove he can step up and win here. I think he has the superior power. He's the more explosive athlete, and he can match the grappling. I feel on the feet, it should be competitive. And as a pure pick, I'm going to go with Albazi because he's had the full camp. I think his jabs, his leg kicks, his pressure, his in and out movement could maybe befuddle Costa a little bit, and maybe he could get a takedown or two. But this is a tough fight, man. I think he picked a real good replacement to go in there with, and a guy that's a champ, a guy that's on a big win streak right now. But it's tough to just go out there and pick him just because Albazi, he hasn't really fought that high-level competition either. I mean, when you look at it, his best win is Ismagulov, who's like 1-5 in the UFC, and his other UFC wins, Francisco Figueiredo, Malcolm Gordon, I don't really feel like those are the highest level UFC victories. So both these guys are still kind of progressing in their careers, but I think that Albazi, he's training at Extreme and he has way more experience in the UFC. He probably has fought the better opponents. So I'm going to go with him as a pure pick by decision. But I think this is a close competitive fight that is going to be fun to watch. And this next fight, man, this is a high-level fight right here. Arman Tsarukyan taking on Damir Ismagulov. And I kind of feel bad for Arman, man. I mean, they keep giving him these type of guys, right? Like, his first fight in the UFC, they're like, boom, take on Islam. And then his last fight, they're like, you want to take on Mateusz Gamrot. And now he's taking on Damir Ismagulov. He's, like, welcoming these, you know, kind of unknown guys to the mainstream fans, where he's, I guess the Islam fight, it wasn't like that, but Islam at that time wasn't really, like, as big of a name. It wasn't like it was a main event fight. It was just on a middle of a fight night card, and he had to go in there and fight him in a low profile type of fight. But he's like getting these real high risk matchups that are low reward returns. Like, if he would have beat Gamrot, I don't think it really would have been like, he probably would have been in a way better position. And obviously, you know, Gamrot went on to fight Beneil Dariush, but it wouldn't have been like, wow, like he was supposed to win that fight. He was a pretty significant favorite over Gamrot. And then now with Damir Ismagulov, he's fighting another guy that's like a beast with not a really big name. Like, that's kind of the same thing he had with Gamrot. But if he was this fight, he's going to be right there with the top guys in the world again. But he still hasn't beaten a top 15 guy. The two times that he had a chance to beat him with Arman Tsarukyan against Islam and Arman Tsarukyan against Mateusz Gamrot, he lost. So he's 0-2 against top 15 competition. And he has to prove that he can kind of get past that. And for Damir Ismagulov, he's finally getting the fights he's been waiting for. His last fight, he got to fight against Guram Kutaladze, who's a real high-level guy that had a super competitive fight with Mateusz Gamrot, and now he's getting to face a top 10 opponent in Arman Tsarukyan. And he's won 19 fights in a row. He hasn't lost since 2015. So this is going to be the fight that will kind of determine if Ismagulov is going to make it to that next level or not. It's a huge fight for his career. And both these guys are just exceptional. I mean, when you look at Arman Tsarukyan, he's a great athlete, very fast, powerful, he's strong. He isn't the greatest striker, but he has a decent one too. His left hook is nice. His lead hand is pretty sharp, and his jab and left hooks are definitely his best punches. He knocked out Christos Giagos with a nice left hook. And overall, he doesn't have the best boxing. He doesn't do the best in exchanges. He tends to only throw 1-2 strike combinations at a time. And if you got a guy that can let go with technical combos, they can get ahead on Tsarukyan, just pure hands-wise. But Tsarukyan does possess solid kicks, which I think are going to come in handy if he wins this fight. Nice left kick, all parts of the body, decent right head kick. He has good spinning kicks, and overall striking is serviceable. It helps sets up his level changes, but he isn't really a world beater on the feet. And Tsarukyan, he reiterated in his last fight that he's one of the best wrestlers and grapplers, not only at 155 pounds, but in the UFC. His level changes are extremely fast. He commits heavily to them. He has an excellent double, really good single. He's really, really good in the clinch. He can hit slams there. And he was able to do well in the clinch with Islam Makhachev, which is saying something. From top position, Tsarukyan's much more of a control guy. But if he gets into a good position, he will rain down the ground and pound. And he really sliced the fighters up with the elbows. We saw him beat up Joel Alvarez on the mat. And his takedown defense is incredible. He's exceptionally hard to hold down. His scrambling ability is top-notch. He has very good cardio. He does slow down a little bit in high-paced fights. We saw that with Gamrot a little bit. He slowed down and ended up losing the 4th and 5th round and losing the fight. But it's only a 3-round fight in this one, and I expect his cardio to be on point enough in this fight. He's training at Tiger Muay Thai, so hopefully he has his striking sharp because he's going to need it. And I think that he needs to use his leg kicks, try to land his leg kicks after his punches, and be real active with the kicks in this fight to have a chance to make it more even on the feet. And with Damir Ismagulov, he's super skilled, well-rounded. On the feet, he's extremely fast, very technical. He has a nasty jab. He has heavy leg kicks. His feints, especially with the lead hand, are just absolutely elite. And he does have Tourette's, which does sometimes with the twitching. I mean, it makes it even harder to read. And, you know, I'm not saying that facetiously. I mean, it really does. And his footwork is very good, and he does a solid job of not giving too many openings to be hit. Is a really good combination puncher on the inside, but he does tend to counter more with one shots at range. Like, he has good check hooks. he'll work the body jab, the head jab, the rear cross. Super fast hands, and he attacks the body really well. And his feet may not be the best at times. He can be a little bit stationary, but his upper body movement, his high guard, his countering ability just makes him extremely hard to land punches on. He's dangerous in exchanges. And Ismagulov is more of a boxer, but he also can mix in fast kicks to the body, to the head. He has pretty good spin kicks. So he has a real wide arsenal of attacks himself. He's good at landing that counter knee to the body when guys come in. And I think he's going to be looking a lot for those strikes up the middle, the knees, the uppercuts in this fight to deter the takedowns and level changes. And his kicking defense is probably where I would say he struggles the most. He ate some leg kicks in some fights, and I haven't really seen Ismagulov fight someone with the leg dexterity and kicking game of a fighter like Arman Tsarukyan, so that's going to be an interesting test for him. His grappling looks very top-notch. He's the most active wrestler, but when he wants to get the takedowns, he can. He has good timing on his doubles. He has good clinch takedowns. On top, his top control is really good, and he can hold guys down. His takedown defense has been rock solid in the UFC. No one has been able to even get a second of top control against him. I guess Guram Kudaladzhi was credited with one takedown, but there was no top control there, and he stuffed almost all of Guram's takedown attempts. He stuffed Thiago Moises' takedown attempts as well. But this is a step up in terms of a wrestler with Arman Tsarukyan. In M1 Global, Ismagulov was able to defeat some really good wrestlers, stuff their takedowns, and I haven't really seen anyone just take Ismagulov down and hold him on his back. I haven't even seen anyone be able to put him on his back and control him for any period of time. But he did get held against the ropes against Rower Tutorali for moments in their fight, and he has to be cognizant of Tsarukyan trying to stall him out against the cage and steal the win. But Ismagulov's cardio is really good. His fight IQ is really good. He has 5-round experience. He's on a huge win streak right now, and the time is now. I mean, the guy's 31, almost 32 years old. If he wins this fight, he's going to break into that top 10, top 5. He's going to potentially start making some real money. He's going to be getting chances at the belt and things like that. So this is his time to win the fight. Both fighters have their path to victory in this fight, and I think that both guys are at really good camps to get prepped for what they have to do as well. Tsarukyan, he's at Tiger Muay Thai, where his kicks, his clinch will be optimized, and Ismagulov is grinding out with the wrestlers at American Top Team. And I see this being more of a striking clinch battle, and I would be surprised and impressed if Tsarukyan can go out there and just take down Ismagulov and hold him down on his back. And I could possibly see Tsarukyan having some success clinching Ismagulov against the cage if he can back him up with his kicks. And Tsarukyan, if he wins, I think it'll be partly due to his clinch and also outworking Ismagulov with his kicks on the outside. For Ismagulov, he needs to do what he always does, stay active with the jabs, feint a lot, try to draw the attacks to Tsarukyan out, try to land maybe one of those counter knees or counter uppercuts up the middle when he shoots, and then just outbox Tsarukyan while keeping it on the feet. And Ismagulov has to go for it more in this fight, try to damage Tsarukyan, because I do see Tsarukyan having some control against the cage, which could maybe make it hard to judge. And I see this being a really close type of fight where it just depends what type of judges you have on fight night. Are they going to favor the control time, the kicks to Tsarukyan, or the superior boxing, the pressure of Damir Ismagulov? And I'm going to go with Damir Ismagulov here because I see it as a dog or pass fight. I feel like it should be more of a pick'em. And they have Tsarukyan they have him at minus 185 now, so almost a 2-1 favorite, which I just can't get behind that number. So personally, I'm going to go with Ismagulov to win this fight via decision. And lastly, we got the main event here. We got Sean Strickland taking on Jared Cannonier, and pick'em fight on the odds makers card. I see a lot of people going with Cannonier. They're pretty confident. I think a lot of people are down on Strickland, obviously, because of his last fight. But you have to remember, man, I mean, he was taking on one of the best glory kickboxers of all time. He's taking on the current champ, Alex Pereira. And I do think he's coming back a little bit fast after the knockout. It's been 5 months now. He was supposed to come back even quicker, like 3 months after. But he didn't get knocked out cold, I guess you could say. I mean, he wasn't out unconscious, which I guess it goes to show how tough Strickland is and, you know, his ability to take a shot. But he wasn't like he was out cold, so it wasn't like he took crazy damage, I don't think. And I think he'll be fine chin-wise. I mean, if he goes out here and he has no chin anymore, then that's just something I kind of got to see. But at this point, I think he's still going to be durable. I see a lot of people thinking that Cannonier's just going to come in here and knock him out, which it could happen. But, you know, I feel like this is a close fight, but I think Strickland is the one that actually has the edge, man. I like Strickland in the matchup overall, just because I don't really like Cannonier's volume, man. Cannonier, he's coming back after that fight with Israel Adesanya, and he's getting up there now. I mean, the guy's 38. He's almost 39 years old. So he's getting up there in age a little bit. And that last fight, you know, he had a chance to get the title. I think that's a big letdown to lose that chance at the belt. It's going to be hard for him to ever get back up there again. So it's going to be hard to restart that climb again for Cannonier. That's another thing that I think Strickland has the edge over. He like loves to fight, and he's still young, and he's going to go out there and he's probably going to be, in my opinion, just a little bit more willing to go for it. But make no mistake about it, though. I mean, Cannonier is dangerous. The guy has a real nice counter left hook, and he has fast hands. He is going to be working the leg kicks in this fight, but I don't think he necessarily is someone that's going to be able to land shots like consistently on Strickland. Strickland's defense is being maligned a lot right now because of that Pereira fight, and you know, he does make some mistakes in terms of he's a little bit plotty. I think he is susceptible to leg kicks, which could be a factor in this fight. And you can hit him sometimes, but I think he has a lot better defense than people think. He has good eyes. He can parry shots well. He has good head movement, and good job blocking punches with the shoulder and things like that. And I think that Strickland's striking and striking defense is a lot better than people are giving it credit for at this point. I think that he's going to be pressuring, throwing a lot of 1-2s, and just really boxing him up, working the jab. I think he's going to keep the volume super high on Cannonier and stay right in his face, try to use the jab to stop the leg kicks and really just beat him up there with the boxing. And Cannonier is going to have to rely on landing these, you know, single shot knockout potential punches. But I just don't see him being able to get that knockout on Strickland, man. I don't think he's like at the level of a Pereira. I don't see him being able to throw a wild spin kick like someone like Alessio Zaleski. And the way that I would see Cannonier getting the finish would be more through accumulation of leg kicks and either finishing him through the leg kicks or hurting Strickland enough to really limit his mobility and then landing a big shot on him. But I think that Strickland is actually going to have a pretty significant advantage in the boxing and on the feet overall. I think he's going to throw more volume. I think he's going to be the guy that lands to the head a lot more frequently. And I think just the amount of volume and the pressure that he's giving Cannonier is going to make Cannonier kind of limited in what he can do. And I think he's not going to let off very much offense. I do think Cannonier might have a couple moments where he might hurt Strickland at some point or maybe drop him or something. But I think Strickland is going to be much more consistent throughout this fight. And the other thing is Strickland does have a big advantage in the grappling, which it's kind of hard to talk about the grappling at this point, especially after him not going to it against Pereira where it was blatantly obvious. I don't really see him going in here and wrestling Cannonier or even attempting very many takedowns if he does, but he has that in his back pocket, and I do think he has a big advantage in the wrestling and grappling. He's younger. I think he has the cardio advantage. I think his striking offense and defense, he has the edge there volume-wise, technically, and Cannonier is just going to have to rely on landing a big one-shot knockout or accumulating a lot of leg kicks that eventually change the tide of the fight. And ultimately, I'm going to go with the Strickland side here, man, to get back on track, bounce back. I think Strickland's stock is a little bit low now in terms of the public and in terms of some people that cap fights, but I'm still going to stick with Strickland here and say that he's able to get the job done via decision. In this one, just this volume, consistent pressure, and just landing clean shots on Cannonier. I think he's going to see a lot of the shots Cannonier throws coming. He's not going to get hurt or knocked out from them. I think his chin is still going to show to be intact, and I'm going to go Strickland in this one to just get the better of the striking and get the win. So thanks for watching, guys. That's the full card breakdown and prediction video for Jared Cannonier versus Sean Strickland. Hopefully you guys learned something from it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. As far as my parlay of the week goes this week, I'm going to go with Sergey Morzov and Jake Matthews. For my most confident pick, I'll go with Sergey Morzov. So thanks for watching, guys. Another thing I'm going to do for this video, since it is coming up on Christmas and everyone that's going to be celebrating Christmas, you know, Merry Christmas to you guys. Happy holidays to everyone else. And yeah, man, but for the first 5 people that put a comment down below in this video, who is your best bet of the week or most confident pick? If you, I'll get in contact with you and give you my bets free for this week and all my Patreon breakdowns free for this week. So the first 5 people down below that comment who their best bet is are going to be getting free my free bets for the week, not only for UFC, but for the other promotions out there and for all the breakdowns and everything like that. So you'll get access as long as you get back to me and we can figure out how to do it. But yeah, man, so put their comments down below, what you think about what's your most confident pick and or your best bet. And if you're one of the first 5 people to put that down below, then you will be winning that prize. And besides that, hit the like button, put some comments down below. Let's get some interaction going on this video. Really appreciate you guys' support this year. Really appreciate everyone that's been on the Patreon and everyone that's supported the channel in general. So thanks, guys. And hopefully, I think I'm going to do the Rising cards. So I'll probably be back here at least a couple more times before the end of the year. But yeah, man, hopefully we have a good time watching this event. We can make some money. And yeah, I'll talk to you guys later.